My name is Weichselbraun, and I am an anthropologist. I have done research on the development of the nuclear safeguards regime, primarily undertaken by the International Atomic Energy Agency. My research is interested in understanding how it is that these nuclear inspectors that the judgments or the evaluations of these nuclear inspectors are taken seriously by anyone. Like, how does this organization gain legitimacy and gain credibility on the international stage? I am an anthropologist, so I'm interested in basically the way that what we as humans do every day sort of produces the kinds of structures and institutions and values that we uphold and that we are sometimes get trapped in. So I'm interested in the relationship between what we do every day and sort of the overarching systems of that kind of govern our lives. So specifically with the IAEA, I looked at nuclear safeguards inspectors in their daily work of going on inspections, writing reports, taking measurements, basically produce and uphold what is a global nuclear hierarchy of states that are allowed to have nuclear weapons and states that are not allowed to have nuclear weapons. I became interested in the IAEA weirdly because in part they are located in my hometown. I was born in Vienna, Austria, and funnily enough, my mother in the 1980s actually worked at the International Atomic Energy Agency. She was a US citizen who'd come to Austria to be with my father. And so that's how I knew that this organization even existed. IAEA is this sort of weird kind of Cold War holdover in some ways. And I think growing up in Austria made me maybe more sort of aware of that institution or the fact of, nuclear technologies and nuclear war in some way. Located sort of in the center of Europe between East and West. And then when I went to graduate school, I was working with an anthropologist who worked on the legacies of the Manhattan Project in the American Southwest. It sort of seemed normal or interesting that I should do something on nuclear topics. What are the reasons to go to graduate school? I don't know, because one is interested in ideas and wants to read books, I guess. So I went to graduate school and carried out research on the International Atomic Energy Agency, defended the dissertation, then spent 2 years as a postdoctoral fellow at the Stanford Center for International Security and Cooperation. And after that, got a position, also sort of a postdoc position, but including teaching responsibilities at the University of Vienna. Nuclear weapons are incredibly dangerous and, in my opinion, destabilizing, because nuclear technologies are huge industrial technologies that impact so much, or that can have disastrous consequences, of course, their operation. But beyond that, I think what is less understood is how importantly nuclear technologies have structured the way that states think about large-scale infrastructure and investment, and the way that technologies become thoroughly enmeshed in politics and statehood and in understandings of the kinds of worlds that we can create. So I guess in some sense it's important for the public to know about the dangers and risks of nuclear technology, especially in light of conversations about nuclear power as a a carbon neutral or a green technological option to deal with the need for clean energy sources given the effects of climate change. So I think it's really important for the public to know what the risks and consequences of nuclear power are, which are, in my opinion, not only the environmental and human impacts of the technology and its toxicity, but also the sort of latent justification that nuclear power sort of smuggles in for nuclear weapons. So I think that's important to sort of recognize that there is a connection between these two, and that they have sort of lived in an uneasy twinning, but perhaps a necessary twinning. So I think the nuclear industry and nuclear states have done a lot of work to try to separate nuclear power from nuclear weapons as something that is like entirely unrelated. And I think it's really important to understand that they are importantly connected. I guess maybe, more of the apparent hype for new kinds of nuclear reactors. I know that there's a lot of talk maybe about fusion, about small modular reactors, and there's a sort of a vocal contingent of let's call them tech bros on social media, and who are pushing this idea that a kind of technological solutionism, that these old institutions and states have been, or even the public doesn't understand, and we have new technologies, new possibilities for creating electricity through innovative nuclear power applications. And I think what a lot of these vocal supporters for small modular reactors and other kinds of new reactor technology don't understand, especially the ones who don't actually haven't worked in the nuclear industry, is that there are other kinds of consequences, or that proliferation is still an important consequence of, or potential consequence of, the spread of nuclear technology. And also there, in that discourse, there tends to be a great disregard for anything the public might want to say about sort of the impacts of nuclear technology in various places. So I guess I would be interested, or I think what concerns me is a sort of overly optimistic techno-solutionism in the public discourse about nuclear power plants. And I think there are a lot of people who have thought deep and hard about the risks of nuclear technologies that need to be heard and that need to be a part of this conversation about how to find answers to the power supply given climate change.